What We Cannot See Pioneers, Intended Ending, Part 3. Icarax found King Archimod staring off into the night. He walked up to his king and loyally bowed before him. Archimod laughed when he saw this. "You still believe I'm a king?" he asked jokingly. Icarax nodded dutifully and replied, "Maybe more than you, my lord." Archimod nodded. Icarax asked, "Why so glum-looking?" Archimod, still looking out at the moonlit landscape of the mysterious new land, said, "It's not that I'm sad about losing my kingdom to a gang culture. I've moved past that. I've just been thinking. Now that the minifig leader, Gyutonoa, wants to fight the Byasein, I've realized that we are the only Bionicles joining in on this crusade. The minifig Newland Empire has provided for its people and has a plan to protect them during this campaign. But me? No, I have nothing. I may not be the king of anything anymore, but I still feel connected with my people, even if they're a bunch of vile gangs these days. Who will protect them from the monsters that are lurking out there? They don't have a Fort Mercy they can hide in, or soldiers who will guard them." Icarax sighed, because he understood all of what Archimod felt. But suddenly, he came up with a great way to put the Bionicle King back into a good spirit. "Archimod, if they are attacked while we're out fighting the Byasein, then maybe they'll realize how terrible their anarchy is, and they might appreciate a government again to help protect them in these dangerous times." Archimod turned around and looked at Icarax with a warm smile. "How is it possible that you were never an advisor to me earlier?" The day came when General George, the man in charge of the entire operation to fight the Byasein, had at last decided the time for action was at hand. Contacting Prime Minister Gyutonoa to inform him of the decision, General George began rallying up the soldiers that were being assigned to this mission. The small amount that would remain behind took their guard positions across Fort Mercy. The rest formed up into a large army. The force that was amassed at the entrance of Fort Mercy was massive. Several battalions of colonial troopers were standing ready, but also several units of elite soldiers used to garrison the military bases, as well as the unique heavy infantry, distinguishable by their orange uniforms, were being equipped with bolt blasters and large backpacks filled with grenades. But the most impressive aspect of the force being sent to the minifig Newland Empire was MAM, the Mobile Armored Mortar, better known as Big Betty. The giant piece of mobile heavy artillery came rolling in on its rattling tracks shortly after the order was sent out by General George. Gyutonoa and his own bodyguard hopped onto their own carrier truck, while the other commanders like Mike and Clark boarded their own. Gyutonoa felt he didn't need to say goodbye to his people. He had already given his speech. But Gyutonoa felt something deeper. It was the lingering sense that he was abandoning his people. But he remained confident. "You're the leader, Stanley," he often thought. "You've given them safety. Now go to the Byasein and free them of their fears." The citizens, knowing that the soldiers of their empire were about to go to war with something almost of a supernatural essence, looked on from their places in Fort Mercy, watching the Big Betty roll into place. They knew how vital a mission this was. It was either defeat by the Byasein, or leave the new land and return to where the entire minifig race came from. And for good reason. No one wanted to go back there. A soldier came up to Gyutonoa, sitting in his seat on his carrier truck. The soldier handed Gyutonoa a clipboard with an attached diagram. The army was facing one of the structure's titanic walls, and the diagram was that of a wall. The soldier told Gyutonoa that the entire area of the wall that the MAN was aimed at was believed to be the weakest spot in the wall. Several blasts from the MAN should bring it down. Gyutonoa nodded in approval of the plan and told the soldier to proceed. King Archimod, Icarax, and Gavla stood next to the minifig army, ready to fight right alongside them when they entered the lair of the Byasein. King Archimod stared intently at the building, ready to fight with the minifigs. Icarax did the same. Gavla, on the other hand, wasn't maintaining a stern, disciplined stare. If anyone managed to get a glimpse of her as she stared at the wall, they'd note her faint grin. A soldier in the army yelled, "Fire!" And immediately after, a gigantic blast noise exploded into the air, and a brief but intensely bright flash shot out of the MAM's cannon. The blast noise was followed then by an explosion on the wall of the structure. Puffs of smoke rose off of Big Betty, and the wall before the army looked ready to crack. 2 more of these potent bombs did the trick, and a large gas crumbled open before the army. The pathway to the Byasein had been opened. Okay, here's another side note to YouTubers. I had intended the scene to have the minifig army facing the sliding door of the house that leads to the backyard. And so a couple of, blasts from Big Betty, and then I would slide open the door just a little bit to mimic a hole in the wall. I know it's crude, but it was, I can't exactly punch a hole through the wall of our own house, so obviously that was the best I could do. But just to visualize what was going on there, they're basically blasting through the wall of the house, preparing to enter it. So just wanted to bring you guys up to speed. A few moments after the wall had been breached, and a most mysterious odor enveloped the army. It was no doubt coming from within the massive structure. It was an incredibly bitter and foul smell, but it was a stench like no other. Despite how rotten it smelled, something about this unique odor was also enticing. Somewhere in the disgusting nature of this smell, there was a pleasant smell, and if the smell did one thing, it didn't make those who smelt it cringe. It beckoned them. General George had never hesitated when giving an order, yet he did now. This was the most pivotal moment of the minifig race so far, and he was commanding it. He couldn't help but freeze for a few moments, knowing what these words from his mouth were about to begin. "Move out!"